came to bring the pain, hardcore from the brain. Let's go inside my astral plane, find out my mental, based on instrumental record. Hey, so I can write monumental methods. I'm not the king, but niggas is decaf. I stick 'em for the cream. Check it, just how deep can shit get? Deep as the abyss, and brothers is mad fish. Accept it in your cross color, close your cross.
That was talking about Inky doing, put everybody up on that newer key. Alright, so then everybody going to talk about Anu, and we know that Anu means the Most High, and that the city of Heliopolis, the city of On in Egypt, the city of On, Heliopolis, was actually called the city of Anu. Right? So we have to understand the city of Anu, and then why would the city of Anu be the name of the father of the Sumerian deities Enki and Enlil? See, this is one family connection. So you got a triune, you got two sons up here, you got one father down in Kemet, right? So you got the traditions that go from here to there. Y'all kind of with me? But you're going to build on it. So Cain represents a certain lineage, but Cain's father is supposed to be Enki. That's Adonai. The Hebrew word Adonai. See, in the Bible, we see in the Bible they say Lord and God, right? Jehovah. So what happens is the terminology being used, we automatically assimilate that it's automatically talking about one reality. I can't call off the top of my head, but I will remember. It's in the book of Joshua, in the book of something else. I think it might just be the book of Joshua, where one of the, I think it might have been Moses. I'm not sure which character actually went. I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna remember it. Was speaking to Jehovah about the blood offering. Like they killed the animal and took the animal to Jehovah. And Jehovah said to them, it's in the Bible, who told you to do that? I didn't tell you to do that. Okay. You see what I'm saying? Right. So it's like if you don't know these components or stages in the Bible, you'd be like, well, darn, that you never know that there's a discrepancy of what was the reality of these names, and that these names coexist as one being. You understand that? Right. Even though we say Allah has many attributes, and they would say Yahweh Vahe has many attributes, El Shaddai, Adonai, Abba-Janai, but the way it was used in the terminology of the scriptures, they were used in a divided fashion. You know what I'm saying? Right. When we take it back to the core of the scriptures. So go ahead and finish reading. I'm just trying to get you so you understand where we deal with the characters.
Few people ever think to inquire about the supposed enemies of Cain as defined in Genesis. Who could they possibly have been? Where would they have come from? According to the Bible, only Adam and Eve, along with Cain and Abel, existed. And Cain had apparently killed Abel. Therefore, if one accepts the text as it stands, there was no one around to be Cain's enemy.
No one. Except for Adam and Eve. They got one dead son. Do you think the mom and daddy gonna kill the only left son? You and your brother fighting. You kill your brother. Ain't nobody but you and your mom and dad there. Mom and dad not about to kill. They gonna be hurt that you killed your brother. They gonna scold you about that. They gonna be mad. But mom and dad not about to kill their last baby. Right? So God ain't even got to put that protection on you, is it? Because that protection already there. So what's really going on in the story? Common sense, think. Don't just be simple-minded. Right. But they have taught the ignorant slave plantational Negro to just go by the plantation era stories and never ask a question. Never formulate a thought pattern. Never say, well, that don't make no damn sense. So somebody's interpreting it to a point that it don't make no sense because they trying to make the story be what they want the story to be. You see what I'm saying? And when it don't make no sense, you say, well, something ain't adding up. Right? Because that don't add up. A mark got to be put on Cain. Well, who going to kill Cain? He going to have some more babies and his kids going to kill him? Huh? Adam and Eve. Cain and Abel. Abel dead. Adam and Eve. Common sense. Go ahead.
The Sumerian Graal was an emblem dignified as the dew cup. It was identified in all records, including those of Egypt, Phoenician, and the Hebrew annals, as being an upright, centered red cross within a circle, and has long been recognized as the original symbol of the Holy Grail. Another anomaly is presented soon afterwards in Genesis, when we are told that Cain found himself a wife. Who on earth were her parents if Adam and Eve were the only couple alive? Then, without confronting this anomaly at all, Genesis lists the names of Cain's descendants. It becomes clear from all this that some very important information has been edited from the Old Testament narrative. Plainly, there were plenty of other people around at the time, and it is not difficult to find their stories outside the Bible. In order to further enhance the historical successions from Cain, he was married to his half-sister, a purebred Anunnaki princess called Lalua. Her father was Enki and her mother was Lilith, a granddaughter of Enlil. Although not giving the name of Cain's wife, the Bible does name their younger son Enoch, while the Sumerian records cite his eldest son and kingly successor Aton, who is perhaps better known as King Etana of Kish. Etana was said to have walked with God and was fed from the plant of birth, the tree of life, as it's called in Genesis. Henceforth, the kings of the line were designated as being the twigs of the tree, and the ancient word for twig was clone or clone. In later times, this plant or tree was redefined as a vine, as so the Graal, the vine, and the Messianic bloodline became entwined in the Holy Grail literature of subsequent ages. But virtue of their contrived breeding, this kingly succession was modeled specifically for leadership and in all the aspects of knowledge, culture, awareness, wisdom, and intuition. They were highly advanced against their mundane contemporaries. In order to keep their blood as pure as possible, they always married within the close kinship, for it was fully recognized that the prominent gene of the succession was carried within the blood of the mother. Today we call this the mitochondrial DNA. And so was born a traditional inherited by their kingly descendants in Egypt and by the later Celtic rulers of Europe. True kingship, it was maintained, was transferred through the female and kingly marriage, where, therefore, strategically cemented with maternal half-sisters or matrilineal first cousins, having reached the point where the plant of birth is first mentioned in the records. We are at about 3800 BC, and it is at this stage that we begin to learn how the kingly succession was orally fed with the bodily supplements from the early days. This original practice continued for more than 1,800 years until the nourishment program became wholly scientific and alchemical. The supplement in question was, in the first instance, a menstrual extract from Enki's sister wife, Nin Karsag, or Kursag, and the designated lady of life. It was revered as a sacred Anunnaki essence, defined as the most potent of all life force and venerated as starfire. It was from the womb of Nin Kursag that the royal line was born, and it was with her own divine starfire that the kingly succession was supplementally nourished. In this regard, they were reckoned to become like gods themselves, an aspect which did not please Enlil Jehovah. In Genesis, when Adam had taken the fruit, Jehovah said, "Behold, the man has become as one of us." In later times, specially designed cups were used for this ceremony, an example of which now resides at the British Museum. Indeed, it was from this very custom that the eventual chalice and wine tradition representing the blood of the Messianic wine move into Christian rituals, though perhaps unwittingly, to become the Eucharist, Holy Communion sacrament. In strict terms, the original starfire was a lunar elixir of the goddess.
Let's say it again. That last.
In strict terms, the original starfire was a lunar elixir of the goddess.
All right, bro. Stop right there.
Lunar.
All right, we going through Cain. Now, where did Cain take us to? So we can get that. Now we going through this. I'm gonna show you through this white guy's book. See, white people reveal stuff to you, but they reveal it based on the paradigm of where they're at. So I want you to come on, somebody build with me where he went at with Cain. How did we get from where did Cain take us to? Was Cain an individual from Adam and Eve?
Yes.
Huh? All right. Let's do this. Adam and Eve, based on our study, is what?
Adam and matter.
Okay. There's Adam and matter. Firstborn child is who? Cain. Cain is really who? The first person born into the material world. The first group of people born into the material plane are who? If this here is spiritual energy becoming matter, and when it becomes matter, it is this people. Who are these first people?
The gods.
Who was Cain?
Cain is the first light body being that came into the physical.
Physical being.
Physical being.
People out of the abyss, remember?
Right. I've ever seen it.
Alright, so this would be coming out of the spiritual thing would be evolving out of the evolution of the triple darkness. Right? But guess what? Astronomical energy becoming matter, right? The darkness of the universe, what we call outer space, or evolving out of the black womb, would be this. So you would have coming from here, coming from spirit, then entering into where it become physical, and from the physical, then entering into what you consider planetary reality. Right? So you have your triune here again. But you understand, I mean, I'm just giving y'all some kind of, so y'all kind of understand your dimensional reality. You kind of understand that? So you have a dimensional reality, meaning, so when you say your planetary reality, inside your planetary reality is what?
Your sun, your moon, your stars, your earth.
That's when you get your physical being.
Yeah, physical being.
Y'all see this?
Right. Adam, Eve, man.
Well, this will be spirit. The big one will be spirit.
Right.
Spirit manifests and becomes matter, which becomes first your black hole. The galaxy, the universe, right? From the manifestation of the triple darkness of the universe, you become from stardust, you become what is a planetary existence, right? Inside the planetary existence is the physical being.
Okay.
Y'all with me?
Yeah.
So that's the 4 stages.
Yeah. Okay.
As above, so below.
Yeah.
You catch it in a minute. So Cain, represented, really here would be who?
The Abyssinians.
Right. Black people. I'm just gonna put black people. Y'all like y'all scared to say black people. I don't know. The brother Moore's got us kind of messed up. You know what I'm saying? But brothers be like, man, shit, I don't know what to say black people no more. They'll be like, brother, we ain't black. Nigga, they be like, man, you know, man. It's just, but I understand that genetic memory must evolve. You know what I'm saying? That's what brothers say. You know, you got to evolve the intelligence to seeing it from a certain perspective. But simply it came down to blacks.
Right.
Right? So now when you following Cain, you following what? Your blood lineage.
Right.
So Cain becomes the bad guy. See, they got to make him the bad guy.
Right.
Because he represents you. Firstborn.
Right.
So the whole story from that point on is already ripped apart. Because we know Adam and Eve is is not a goddamn man and woman.
Right.
We know that's some science.
Right.
So when we get to Cain and Abel, we know there's something else going on.
Right. It's a moose science.
It's some more science. Right?
Yep.
So then we know Cain representing some stuff about us. So we need to study Cain. So when we follow Cain, Cain took us into the Sumerian and Mesopotamia. Because that's where the fucking book for the Old Testament began. Come out of now, right? Right? But then you have to say, why would the Old Testament be the Septuagint, be the 70 Egyptian Coptic priests, and why would they have information that would take it to Sumer and they would give them the Sumerian information rather than give them the dialogue from a Kemetic information?
They're the same people.
Huh?
They're the same people.
Nope. See, because we don't know history, we don't understand it. We can't see it.
Right.
Because we don't know history, we can't understand it, we can't see it. And the only reason we could overstand it, because we would overstand that the Coptic order of priests that was in the Kemetic area at that point in time were coming off of the Hyksos blood lineage time period. You understand that? Remember now, Egypt is hit by the Hyksos.
Right.
This is way before the Septuagint.
Okay.
Right? The blood lineage is then mixed up for 200 to 300 years. What's left in Egypt is mixed breed, but they run Hyksos out, but there's still some mixed breed there.
Right.
So through all of the years of Egypt rising and falling, by the time you get to the time period, which is the 285 BC, before Christ, 285 BC. No, it's not 285. It's 285 AD. Excuse me. But when you finally get to the Septuagint, when you get to the time period of the Septuagint, you have to understand that the Hyksos blood lineage and the mixed up blood lineage had done been in that area for so long. When you go to talk about the Coptic, Egyptian, Kemetic, or Melikitic priests, you're talking about these people who come in and descended from this time period, but that's also a blood lineage of people that fled from Sumer back down into Egypt. Right? So they were holders of both of those lessons.
Right.
And they knew, like, if you was to explain where the story, where we get off track and what goes wrong, you're going to have to incorporate the Sumerian epic of when the people come, the fallen ones invade in the Sumerian area and make their way down into Kemet.
Right.
You understand? So they knew that they had to place the Sumerian dialogue there, but they had to also place that there to protect the story so that you would understand how the lineage goes. Because if they let us be divided, then they broke us. Right?
Right.
Because we don't understand the connection between Sumer and Africa or Sumer and India and stuff like that. Right? We don't understand that. Based on that, brother, read Wonderful Ethiopian Cushite. This is Drusilla Houston. This is an area talking about the old Ethiopian people. But start from this little paragraph here. If you want, you can just read the stuff underlined, but you can read the whole paragraph if you want to. But what this is going to do is talk about a connection. I want you to see connection too.
Diodorus Celsius that the worship of Zeus, Amen, originated in Meroe, also the worship of Osiris. This would render highly probable the opinion that commenced science and art descended into Egypt from the Upper Nile. Herodotus called the Ethiopians wise men occupying the Upper Nile, men of the long life, whose manners and customs pertain to the Golden Age. Those virtuous mortals whose feasts and banquets are honored by Jupiter himself. In Greek times, the Egyptians depicted Ethiopia as the ideal state. The Puranas, the ancient historical books of India, speak of the civilization of Ethiopia as being older than that of Egypt. Right. These Sanskrit books mention the names of God, Kushite kings that were worshipped in India and who were adopted and changed to suit the fancy of the later people of Greece and Rome.
Okay. So now we even know that in India, right? That in India they recognize the Abyssinian was the beginning of even India.
Right.
And in their old books, this was their first gods. And there's one more thing. And what they do then, they explain all of the ancientness of that. Hindus Puranas speak of the Kushites going to India before they went to Egypt, proving the Hindu civilization coevoled with the Chaldea in the country of the Nile. These ancient records that the Egyptians were a colony drawn out from Kush-Dwipa, and that Pali, another colony that made the Phoenicians, followed them from the land of Kush. In the primitive days, the central seat of Ethiopia was not the Meru of our day, which is very ancient, but a kingdom that preceded it by many ages that was called Meru, M-E-R-U. Lerman spoke of the first men of the ancient world as men of Meru. Now, Meru, M-E-R, was called moon. The Sanskrit writers called Indra, chief god of Hindu, the king of Meru. Listen, the Sanskrits called Indra, chief god of the Hindu, king of Meru. He was defied and became chief representative of the supreme being. Thus was primitive India settled by colonists from Ethiopia. Earlier writers said there was very little difference in the color or the features of the people of the two countries. Now, India, Sumeria, all of these evolved from out of this one blood lineage. So the connections of these stories there, or the science that was hidden in the stories there, is usually one and the same. You just have to learn to decode it based on the symbolism. Y'all with me? Right? So when he went through Cain, he went through the Sumerian, right? And the Sumerian took us to Canaan, to Enlil and Enkidu, right? Then it took us to Enki, saying that Enlil was mad. He didn't want the people to be able to become certain part of certain knowledge, right? And Enki wanted them to have certain type of knowledge, right? And so, but Enki secured it through his his sister, the Starfire, right? I mean, his sister carried the Starfire. Now, Enki represents the god reality Adonai, and Adon, right? How many of you have researched that word?
I have.
Tell me about it.
I know that for one, I used to study that it was a fallible name, Adonai, and I started studying and I took it back to the Greek. But now, where I'm coming from now, and I understand everything that you chimed in to the Enki story. It's like levels of things uncovering about us, but that's what they say, and it's a secret words that the Jews hold in their ceremony, and they say that's the best I can put it right there. That's something they use, but they know the concepts of it. I know the concept of it, but I'm not able to verbally just put it out there like that.
I'm gonna give you. I just want you to say two words right there. Read the word Adonai, right? There's two words right behind it in parentheses. What the two words is?
Adonai, Hebrew word for Lord, God, Lord of hosts.
Go right to the word.
No. Adonai, Lord, Master.
Master. So you see, you got to be a master of your craft. You understand that? Y'all ain't really there yet. You kind of there with me. But Adonai, master of the craft. I mean, Adonai means masculine, but it's Adonai. But it goes on now. His sister carries a starfire, which secures the path. Now read that last thing I told you about the starfire. We're going to get this down, right? Because they say they drinking. What was supposed to be the starfire? Somebody help me. Because in the mitochondrial DNA of the woman, right? But they said that they were trying to get the starfire. What was the starfire for? What was it going to do with the starfire?
In strict terms, the original starfire was a lunar elixir of the goddess. But even in the everyday mundane environment, menstruum contains the most valuable endocrinal secretions, particularly those of the penile and pituitary glands. The brain's penile gland, in particular, was directly associated with the tree of life. For this tiny gland was said to secrete the very essence of active longevity, while also facilitating above average powers of perception and awareness. The Sumerians' annals relate that Cain's son, King Etana partook of the plant of birth in order to father his own son and heir, King Bali, while the plant was itself associated with the office of kingship. The royal Messiahs or Messiahs was often referred to as a dragon or serpent, and in old Bibles, reference to serpents are made by use of the word nahash, but this does not relate to serpents in the way that we would know them as venomous snakes. It relates to serpents in their traditional capacity of bringers of wisdom and enlightenment, for the word nahash actually meant to decipher or to find out. Serpents in one form or another were always associated with wisdom and healing, and the tree of life and knowledge are customarily identified with serpents. Indeed, the insignia of many of today's medical associations is precisely this image of a serpent coiled around the plant of birth. A depiction shown in the clay reliefs of ancient Sumer to be Enki's own personal emblem. Interestingly, though, another common emblem for relief organizations depicts two coiled serpents spiraling around the winged caduceus of Hermes the magician. In these instances, the true symbol of the starfire ritual is conveyed, and this symbol can be traced back to the very origins of the mystery schools of the Gnostic institutions. The records explain that the central staff and the entwined serpents represents the spinal cord and the sensory nervous system. The two uppermost wings signifying the brain's lateral ventricle structures. Between these wings above the spinal cord is shown the small central node of the pineal gland. A starfire recipient king was considered to have become qualified for kingship when he reached the predestined state of enlightened consciousness, a state when the aptitudes of wisdom and leadership had been enhanced to a realm of kingship called the Malkut. It was from the Mesopotamian word that the Hebrews derived their words Malchus, meaning king, and Malkut, meaning kingdom.
Okay, hold up now. So now what happens is Cain, just going from Cain and understanding Cain is Sumerian, right?
Right.
And taking it to Enki, then we find out, we take it to this word where he talk about, now you get a historical name, Etana, in Sumeria. And then the story of the time was that Etana ate the plant at birth, and it was associated with the office of kingship, and then it went to the dragon and the serpent theories, right? We always know this because everybody talks about the Naja, right? So we already know what we're dealing with, right? Because the serpent supposed to be the deceiver. Cain's supposed to be the killer. Now you got both of these sciences falling right together, right? What you took and made as the most evil concepts of the Bible, dealing with the fall of man and every other type of problem, right? Right?
Yep.
Cain killed Abel, serpent. See, all these things became the worst parts of the stories of the Bible, and we took them, and that's how we sized up the story. But now when we go through it, it goes through Cain, they talk about the starfire. So we get to going through the story, we talk about now, you really understand that this blood lineage that they talking about were keepers of the starfire. This is how the European interpreted it, right? But this blood lineage that keepers of the starfire, see, even though they Sumerian, they also Kemetic. Because we know the people of Sumer were part of the Kemetic lineage.
Right.
You understand that? Right? So then when the biblical story takes it, they take it and they bring the lineage through Abraham from Sumeria back to Egypt, making Joseph being the connection that makes the family of Abraham one with the family of the Kemet. But what happens is the name behind this blood lineage from Cain gets lost. Remember one time we talked about what is it, the Baphomet and when they talk about this blood lineage and they bring it down, and they talk about Cain and they take it into the noggin, then they talk about the star fire, right? And they tell you that the star fire is lunar, right? Well, the star fire is a lunar formula, correct?
Right.
This is what we dealt with now. This is what we've dealt with. The star fire is the pineal and the pituitary, right? But the pineal and the pituitary produce the seed. Remember we talked about the man, God, word made flesh, and everybody has been reading about now the seed comes, right? But the seed only moves based on the lunar cycle, remember? Meaning, but you're a solar being because you're hydrogen, DNA structure, remember? Hydrogen, solar. So you're a star fire because when the chakra energy produces the sun, but this whole concept is based on a lunar formula. Y'all with me? Yeah. It's based on a lunar formula. That's when they talk about every 29 and a half days, your sign, the moon will be in your sign and your body produces the seed. But if you don't know how to harvest the seed, you could never regenerate the body, opening the pineal gland. So it was a whole cycle of science based on the pineal pituitary. But the keepers of that blood lineage was the Canaanites, which ended up becoming the bad bloodline, right? Which they threw you all the way off, which then they made it the part of the blood lineage of the people of the Pharaohs, part of the blood lineage of the people of the Phoenicians, right? So then it put on all of the bad blood lineage that the people of the Hebrew Israelites are supposed to be fighting, correct? But then when you go back to the story, you find the Hebrew Israelites really is these same damn people. And that the people that was following the Hebrew Israelites then became a different type of people. You kind of understand that? But all through the whole thing was the science of the star fire. The science of the star fire was hidden in the history of Canaan, and it came all the way back around. But when you talk about the science of the star fire, what was it?
Was it the black woman?
Okay, they say the black woman, but they tell you you're supposed to be drinking the menstrual blood. Right?
That's what they said.
When you go to find about the menstrual blood, the concept that's in the menstrual blood is the melanin concept. It's on another piece of paper. It might be on one of the other next pages the brother got to read, right? But it's going to start talking about the melanin concept and the pineal and the pituitary, right? So then you know now when they talk about the sister, or we talk about the sister of Enkidu, you talking about the feminine nature, masculine and feminine, brother and sister, polarities, right? Right. So what happens is now it's telling you that this mitochondrial DNA, that the woman, the feminine principle, woman for real, that produced this blood lineage, left a blood lineage that is the keepers of the star fire, right? Abraham's family, they running, right? They keepers of the blood lineage, the star fire. The fallen ones coming out of the cave, they got to do what? Protect the blood lineage. So what they got to do? They got to get back down to Egypt, and they got to get down here to Egypt and unite, right, what? With the blood lineage, right? So the blood lineage here doesn't unite, and they say, well, we're going to fight them right here. But the fight get bad in Egypt. So then they got to do what? They got to run down here, what? Down to Abyssinia, Ethiopia, and let them know. But now they got to unite with the blood lineage down here. Because guess what? That's a treaty, right? So now they make a treaty, boom, boom, and they got to come back up here and help them fight. So in the annals of our history, which we call biblical text, is the protection of the bloodline.
Right.
So that you would be able to make a blood offering today. But you would never be able to make the blood offering if you never understood the science or the formula of yourself. So the enemy makes sure that you did not have knowledge of yourself, or that this was the embodiment of the history or the scriptures that you was given. Because they knew you wouldn't do the research. Because they would keep your mind so frustrated with what you got to deal with in life that you would never have time to deal with yourself. That's called enslaving the being to the matrix. And that's where you say that economical power becomes important, so that you could take your people off the treadmill, so that they could take time to harvest that which is in them. So that the brothers that you see have the ability to harvest it the fastest, you're supposed to give them brothers a break. Give them that break. See what I'm saying? And that's how the societies did, and they chose the brothers and sent them through initiation. They chose the sisters and sent them through initiation so that they could harvest that reality and produce it, and they protected them and made sure that they interbred and bred together, and that was the birth and to keep the blood lineage of the gods alive. That was what the whole process was, so that the blood offering could always be made. You understand that? Okay, Hotep brothers. You know, it's a little bit more, but you know, time is of the essence. We're going to stop right there. I'm going to ask the brothers. I got to read not reading next time because we didn't hit it. We didn't hit it. We didn't get there.
Times of essence.
Based on that, brother, I like every brother in here to give an interpretation of their understanding of making a blood offering and how they perceive that as what they're going to be dealing with themselves, and how would they do it with themselves, and how would they convey that message to someone else. And in that process of understanding that, we'll deal with that next time we get to that process of understanding that, because there's a lot more history to go with that too, because we're going to go through that king thing and all of that together. Matter of fact, hold on. Let me make sure what you got, because you may have to read this. Okay, yeah, you got to read your part. Brothers, y'all gonna be patient. I'm gonna let him read his part. Start right here. See, if y'all reading at home, we're gonna have to do this, because many of y'all already got this paper. Read it right there, brother.
All right. The story, of course, is that of Moses and the Israelites' exodus from Egypt. This was the mountain upon which, according to Exodus, Moses saw the burning bush, the mountain where he talked with Jehovah, and the place where he then received the Ten Commandments and the tablets of testimony. Something that we should recognize at this stage is that at the time of Moses, roughly 1350 BC, there was no mountain called Mount Sinai. There was no mountain by that name even in the days of Jesus, nor even for another 300 years. It should also be said that the Old Testament, which is familiar to us today, is a translation from a Hebrew text compiled only 1,000 years ago, and it is therefore a few centuries younger even than the canonical New Testament. The mountain, now generally known as Mount Sinai, sits at the south of the peninsula, quite near to the bottom point of the upturned triangle. It was given its name in the 4th century AD by a mission of Greek Christian monks, 1700 years after the time of Moses. It is now called Gebel Musa, or Mountain of Moses. And a small Christian retreat, St. Catherine's Monastery, still exists there. But was this the Mount Sinai, which the Bible calls Mount Horeb? Well, it transpired that it was not. The book of Exodus goes into some detail to explain the route taken by Moses and the Israelites from the Nile Delta land of Goshen down across Sinai, across the wilderness regions of Shur and Paran to the land of Midian, which is to the north of present-day Jordan. From this route, it becomes very easy to identify the location of Mount Horeb. It sits a good deal north of Jebel Musa. The word Horeb simply means desert, and the great desert mountain soars to over 2,600 feet within a high stone plateau above the plain of Paran. Is today called Sarabit, or to be more precise, Sarabit el Qadim, the prominence of the Qadim. Egypt exploration fund to take an expedition to Sinai. By January 1904, he and his team were in Sinai. And in March of that year, they took their expedition to the heights of Mount Sarbit. And it goes on to Mount Sarbit. In the following year, Petrie published the detailed results of his finding.
but added to his reports the fact that this information would not be made available officially to the Egypt Exploration Fund subscribers. They would receive only maps and a general outline. Furthermore, Petrie explained that even though he had taken previously funded teams into Egypt from the time of that Sinai expedition, his sponsorship by the fund had been terminated. Why? He had perhaps broken the binding rules of the articles by divulging something which was contrary to Bible teachings. He certainly had. In fact, Petrie had discovered the great secrets of the sacred mountain of Moses, a secret which not only made sense of the Exodus portrayals, but which in so doing blew the lid totally from their common scriptural interpretations. What the Bible does not make clear is that Sinai was not a foreign land to the Egyptians. It was actually regarded as a part of Egypt and came under pharaonic control. So Moses and the Israelites had not left Egypt once they were east of the Nile Delta. They were still in Egypt, having the whole Sinai Peninsula to cross before they entered the Palestinian lands of Canaan. During the time of Moses, Sinai came under the control of two Egyptian officials, the royal chancellor and the royal messenger. This was the era of Egypt's 18th dynasty, the dynasty of Tutmosis and Amenhotep Pharaoh, along with Akhenaten and Tutankhamun. The royal messengers of those times was Nebi, an official who was also the mayor and troop commander of Zaru in the Nile Delta region of Goshen, where the Israelites had lived before Exodus. The position of the royal chancellor was hereditary in the Hyksos family of Paneas, and the Panahesi of this family was the official governor of Sinai. We know him better from the Bible as Phinehas. Yeah. He became one of the first priests of the new Mosaic structures, but previously he had been chief priest at Pharaoh Akhenaten temple at Amarna. Before we go back to Sir William Flinders Petrie and to understand the root significance of his discoveries, it is worth making a necessary distinction between the Israelites and the Hebrews of the Moab era. At the time, they were not one and the same, as the Bible seems to indicate. The Hebrews were the family and descendants of Abraham, and their place and residence was in the main Canaan or Palestine. The Israelites, on the other hand, were the family and descendants of one of Abraham's grandsons, Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel. It was Jacob's family alone who had moved into Egypt, and it was their descendants who eventually returned with Moses to be reunited in countless generations with their fellow Hebrews. Keep on. All right. The difference between the strands was, of course, that the Israelites had long been subjected to the laws and religions of Egypt, and they knew very little about the customs of their cousins in Canaan. Through more than 400 years, they had been in an environment with the whole Parthian concept with their own fraternity that God was not the Jehovah of the Canaanite Hebrews. The Israelites' God was a faceless entity whom they call, quite simple, the Lord. In the Israelite language, he was called Adon. This is one of the reasons why the name Lord and Jehovah were always separately identified in early texts, although they were brought under the wrap of the single God in later times to suit the emergent Jewish and Christian faiths. To the Egyptians, the name of this Lord, Adon, was quite similar. They called him Aten. From this derived the name of Pharaoh Akhenaten, meaning servant of Aten. So when Moses and the Israelites made the exodus into Sinai, they arrived not as worshippers of Jehovah, but of Aten. And it was for this very reason that they were given a whole new set of laws and ordinance to bring them into line with the Hebrew culture of the prospective new homeland. When Moses and the Israelites left the Nile Delta, their obvious route to Canaan, where they eventually headed, would have been directly across the wilderness of northern Sinai. So why did they push southwards into difficult high country to spend some time at the hard mountain of Sarabet? This was a question that had long puzzled Petrie and his team. So what precisely did they find on the Bible's holy mountain? Well, to begin with, they found nothing very much. But on a wild plateau near the summit, there were distinct signs of ancient habitation, and some pillars and standing stones could be seen protruding above the ground rubble. This rubble had been deposited little by little by wind and landslides over some 3,000 years. But when it was finally moved away, the truth of the Bible story emerged, Petrie wrote. There is no other such monument which makes us regret that it is not in better preservation. But the whole of it was buried, and no one had any idea until we cleared the site. What they found was an enormous temple complex set with an enclosure. Walls was an outer temple built over an expanse of 230 feet, approximately 70 meters. This extended outwards from an inner temple cut within a great cave in the mountainside. From the various cartouches, carvings, and inscriptions, it emerged that the temple had been in use from as far back as the time of Pharaoh Sneferu, who reigned about 2600 BC, and whose immediately successors are reckoned to have built the pyramids of Giza. The above ground part of the temple was constructed from sandstone quarried from the mountains, and it comprised a series of adjoining halls, shrines, courts, cubicles, and chambers. Of these, the key features unearthed were the main sanctuary, the shrine of the kings, the portico court, and the hall of the goddesses Hathor, to whom the whole complex was dedicated.
Hathor, Het Heru. Hathor, Het Heru. House of Horus. See what I'm saying? You the house of Israel, the house of Horus. The house of the Messiah. See what I'm saying? That's all they're telling you. The house of the Messiah. That's what the whole temple was dedicated, reminding, and was a lesson of producing the house of the Messiah. They didn't find a Mount Sinai. Moses wasn't going out to no Mount Sinai. According to the location, he was going out to a damn temple of Hathor to commune with God, with the Most High. Who was he communing with? He was communing with another brother named Jethro. Where the hell Jethro? Who was Jethro? Huh? Jethro was Ruel, his father-in-law. That was the Lord. Because The Jethro was a Kohen priest. He was the Lord of the land. He was a king and a priest.
Right.
So it wasn't no mountain. It went to a temple. Who went to the temple? Moses, because it wasn't no man named Moses going to no darn Egyptian temple, because he just would have said, I went to the temple. So what they did was they misconstrued the story, but when they gave the directions of the mountain, it throws people up there in the mountain. So when Petrie and the archaeologists start following the Bible story, they go and they say, hold up, this shit took us to an Egyptian temple dedicated to Hathor. Remember that name. That is very important because that's the cow. Remember they said it's a cave enclosement? Remember Jesus supposed to be born in the cave in the manger, and there was a cow standing always. They put the picture with him. Right. Brother always show you the picture. What is Williams? Walter Williams. Walter Williams always show you with a cow. And your boy Ashley Queasy like to show you. He like to show you the cow all the time. That's Hathor.
Yeah.
Heru, symbolizing the feminine principle that always guards the child. That's always there. That's the manger where he lies at. That's the star which you mark his birth with. See, all that became a code. What do you know? The Old Testament is an illusion when you deal with the history, but then you find the science in it. See, that's why I tell the brothers, I ain't gonna tell you to throw it away. I'm gonna tell you to break it down.
Right.
Damn, man, we appreciate you.
All right.
Go ahead and finish reading the last little bit, brother, so we can close it out.
All right. All around were pillars and stelae, denoting the Egyptian kings through the ages, and certain pharaohs such as Tutmosis III, founder of the Rosicrucian movement in Egypt, were depicted many times on standing stones and wall reliefs. The adjoining cave of Hathor was carved into to the natural rock, with flat inner walls that had been carefully smoothed. In the century from about 1820 BC stood a large upright pillar of Pharaoh Amenemhet III, the son-in-law of Esu. Also portrayed were his senior chamberlain and his seal bearer. Deep within the cave, Petrie found a limestone stela of Pharaoh Ramesses I, a slab upon which Ramesses, who is traditionally reckoned by Egyptologists to have been an opposer of the Aten cult, surprisingly described as himself, the ruler of all that Aten embraces.
See, so they taught us wrong.
Right.
Definitely. We'll never find out if we had a brother like you to break it down.
You know, a 10 is a ton, and a ton is was atum.
Yeah.
Atum, because they ain't gonna put the vowel, they ain't gonna put an e or o, but we know when they put it, if you put it, you got atum or tum. And so what they was recognizing is the same when Akhenaten was talking about the sun. They thought he was he just said a ton is the sun, but it was rock. But it was actually recognizing the hydrogen, actualizing the energy, the being, the melanated being, the sun. That whole science. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't so much as worship, but recognition of the science in which you live in. That's recognizing the intelligence of the Creator, and in that process, you honoring the Creator. You know what I'm saying? You acknowledging the existence of your Creator by acknowledging what? Yourself. See, you can't acknowledge the existence of the Creator only but through yourself.
You're right.
You know what I'm saying? I tell a brother always, I said, your faith will fail you.
Okay.
Because you cannot believe in anything that strong. It will wither.
Okay.
But your choice to be can never. You know what I'm saying? See, that's why the Creator, it's like the Creator gave you a choice. See, it's one thing greater than faith is choice. And that's why the Christians always talking about the Creator. No, we have the choice to choose. The Creator gave us the choice. That's why Adam and Eve had the choice. He never would eliminate the choice. The choice was the greatest thing. You have the choice to be. Right? You have the choice. It's your mind. Choose to be. That's greater than faith. Huh? greater than faith. Because faith gonna fail you. So what the Creator did was, he said, well, you ain't got to have no faith. I'm going to put everything in you. All you got to do is choose to operate.
Cultivate yourself.
See what I'm saying? You had to have a faith in nothing. Just know yourself. And I'm going to put everything in you. See what I'm saying? Because if you just try to have faith in God, you're going to always wither and fall. But the choice for you to be strong within yourself and operate yourself, and, you know what I'm saying? The choice to ignite that. So that's greater than faith. Because you know what I'm saying? Now you fulfilled it. So you can fulfill that. Yeah. Because that means the weight is taken off of you. You know what I'm saying? Yep. You wouldn't make it like that. Creed ain't crazy. You know what I'm saying? You will stand and just have faith through everything. Creed is no. Operate in your intelligence. Acknowledge your intelligence. Operate your intelligence. Make the choice to do that. That's the greatest of all faith.
Free your mind.
Alright, we close out, brother. That's the end of that. Next, brother. Anybody else have something to say about anything?
I had something I would say briefly. You know, on doing my studies, you know, I study. When I'm studying, I study. We got to deal with Cain, that's Abyssinia. Then we deal with Abyssinia. Then we'll take it back to Abyssinia and deal with Abyssinia as the size of Katara. Then we'll deal with where Sebek and Fru had to go back down to Egypt when they didn't know Joseph. So you know you got the three dynasties right there, three principles and everything we learned. And even though signs and symbols for the conscious man, I'm understanding the signs and symbols. With Moses, you know, it was a mental. You know him and when I first met you, you was like you was saying about Messiahs1, and I was like, you know, when I first met you, I was like, but I know the science of everything you were saying. Now I know about Moses, I know about Mystory, I know about Mystory. Mystory, he is what you would say in everything we learn. If you want to know the embodiment of Horus or Heru, it would be through a Mystory, through being science of somebody actually embodying something, protecting this knowledge and running them out of there, because there's never a time when man was not, and we always had this battle. So a Mystory did that. Then it went through a Mystory 1, 2, 3, then 4. Then it came to a Mystory 4 was like, hey man, I see what's really going on. So now I'm about to be a ton. He had to change the whole demographics of the thing because, you know, because it's just like what we doing.
Science,
yeah,
science
right.
Time evolved.
Because we doing so many things. I'm a Moor. I'm this. I'm a Hebrew Israelite. I'm this. But we all Messiahs. You know what I'm saying?
Black.
Yeah, black. We black. So I see with so why they credit they credit the brother they credit him so much that they say, oh, he brought it into the monotheism. I agree with that, and I'm with that too, and I see that. There's so much other things out there with that one point I can focus on. There's so much other stuff out there I can't get, but for those who ain't there, they have to focus on one. But what you were saying about what can we do right now in the blood sacrifice is that everything I'm feeling, everything I'm saying, I'm doing from my diet, from my meals right now, from what I'm eating. All my children have been on different, I have been in different stages right now. The child I got right now ain't Lord willing, the 22nd of December, might be early, it might be later. But her vibration, what me and her mom was on, ain't on the same thing, but I have changed my own diet, my own way of thinking, what I'm doing, and my sacrifice is the sacrifice what we are learning nowadays is, you know, you say God, but at the same time, I am the Lord your God. Because, you know, you got God, but you got the Lord too. You know what I'm saying? I am the Lord your God. And my blood sacrifice is what I'm doing right now, what I'm doing right now, for me personally, you know, is I'm seeing my kids, I'm putting them, I'm giving them, just they what I got. It's like I learned that you can either deal with a brother When I'm doing in my house and how I'm raising mine, I don't have to have no argument. Argue, and you go and you get up on the child, but I ain't gave you something, you gonna come back in. And I'm like, oh, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you can't calculate, but you know about the pet. Okay, the name is Petri, Petrie. Look it up,
Basically.
put it online, and everything will come.
Can't fuck it. I came to bring the pain, hardcore from the brain. Let's go inside my astral plane. Find out my mental, based on instrumental.